So, hey everybody, welcome to ISTE Live 2021. I'm Fred King from Cisco Systems. I'm a business solutions architect on the global education team, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time and attention today. We're really looking forward to our cloud security session with Chris Connolly. So before we start the session, though, I just want to give you guys a quick heads up that if you attend 3 Cisco speaking sessions throughout the course of ISTE, we'll give you a nice Cisco Igloo mug, right? And we'll also put you into a raffle to win a pair of Apple AirPods. So please feel free to attend the sessions and get the mug and be put into consideration for the AirPods. As I said before, we're doing our cloud security session right now, adopting cloud securely with Chris Connolly. So Chris, thank you again for that. These are the other upcoming sessions that we've got today. So please feel free to check those out. We have a couple of sessions as well tomorrow. A couple of really great things here. Feel free to grab a screenshot of this if you want, just so you kind of know what's upcoming. And so kind of without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Chris Connolly. Chris is the area leader for public sector security, and I just want to pass it over to him, and let's start the conversation off. Chris, again, thank you so much for your time today and for the presentation. I'll stop my share.
All right, thanks, Fred. You're welcome, and I'm super excited to be here, folks. And hopefully we can have a little fun, talk a little bit about security. But the first thing I wanted to make sure I pointed out is I had one goal today, and that was to be the most colorfully dressed speaker for the day. And I hope I accomplished that. If not, let me know and I'll step my game up next time. We titled this on Adopt the Cloud Securely, and I kind of subtitled it, But Why? Because a lot of what we really want to talk about today is why we need to be cautious as we adopt the cloud in everything that we do. And so just to give you kind of an idea of, what I have to bring to the table for us to discuss today is, I've got a number of years experience in cybersecurity, but more than anything, I have 14 years of leadership experience within Cisco. So that is a 14-year-old picture. It doesn't have as much gray hair as I have now. But currently I have 26 different states in the East that my team manages. And my business partner's on the phone too, Corey Schultz. He manages all the architects, the technical smart guys that pair with our team. But I'm just setting this up from a background standpoint, just so that you kind of understand. We cover 26 states. We've got 13 regions and 3 Cisco operations. But more importantly, we have over 30 million K-12 students in our territory that we cover. And that's really important because we get to see a lot of what's happening in your peers. The other thing that our teams do is we do cover every city in each one of those 26 states, every county, every state government, and of course, all the independent agencies that are within those states. So all of that, not to say how awesome we are, it's just really just to say we see a lot. So I'm appreciative whenever people get together and talk about cybersecurity, because I think anytime you talk about cybersecurity, you increase your awareness of what's going on around you. So thank you for being here. And hopefully we can share a little bit of some intelligence on what we see out in the world. Now, first question we've got to answer is, what is the cloud? Some of you might have this sticker on your PC. I have it on my laptop. There is no cloud. It's just someone else's computer. I'm not the only one that came up with this revelation. Dr. Evil was the first one I saw that had it, where he said, there is no cloud. Even the great Morpheus from the Matrix realized there is no cloud. What if I told you it's just someone else's computer? But we are going to define the cloud. This is the cloud. And so for the purpose of what we're talking about in education, on the left-hand side is where your students and teachers or any user is, and they don't have to be on a network. They could be on a laptop or an iPad sitting at Starbucks or at home, but they're accessing an application somewhere else that's being managed by someone else. So jokingly, when we say it's someone else's computer, it's AWS's computers or Blackboard's computers or Google computers or an LMS that you might have launched in your environment, or Slack, or Microsoft Teams or Cisco WebEx, all of these applications that are held in the cloud. And the reason why they're in the cloud is it gives these application providers the ability to deliver quickly, ubiquitously, and it also gives them the ability to innovate quickly because they don't have to make changes in your environment to do that. So from a definition perspective, that's what the cloud is. But here's why it's important to us. We're in a new reality today, which we all know very well, right? And anytime we make changes in how our students, teachers, entities access information and applications, our visibility and protection creates more gaps, right? Our threat landscape expands. We're having software-defined wide area networks. Some students are trying to access applications with direct internet access instead of VPN through our network where we have control. So attackers aren't sitting by idly. They're paying attention to that, and they're creating attacks that will take advantage of that. And I'll give you some facts. You know, this is really important, you know, when you're starting to look at a solution to understand a lot of this data. Not necessarily that important for you to understand why cloud's important, but most breaches are caused by a malicious attack. About 3 million, almost $4 million is the average cost of a data breach. Most businesses have experienced a cyber attack. Most businesses have experienced a data breach. And EDU faces the same challenges, whether you're K-12 or a higher ed. And my team works with both, but EDU does face the same challenges. The information breached might be a little different, but the challenge is still there. And it takes a long time to remediate and contain a breach. And whether you detect it early or late, you've got an impact. Whether it's low or high is dependent upon how fast you catch that. So here's some of the challenges that we see across the education model that we cover. Most feel more weight needs to be placed on security, but they don't know how to pay for it, right? Everybody wants to be more secure, but you still have to buy a solution or implement a solution or have the expertise to manage a solution. A lot of education institutions really worry about data breaches, and they get compromised by targeted attacks. And a targeted attack doesn't say, you know, I'm going to go after XYZ school system. They say, I'm going to go after school districts as a whole, and let's see who falls into my net, kind of like a spider web, right? And so that's kind of the challenges that we see a lot of our entities having. And you know, the challenge that all enterprises have, really honestly, is there aren't enough security people to go around to help, right? Well, there are some school systems we work with where the security professional is the same person that cleans the floors, is the same person that puts up the signs and changes the daily billboard out front. You know, staffing is difficult. And even in the corporate world, we have over 3.5 million cybersecurity jobs vacant right now. My team is recruiting heavily in HBCUs and other universities where we are just starving for talent, pulling them in. And so that shortage does not go unnoticed by the attackers. And then most honestly struggle to orchestrate alerts. An alert is what happens when something goes wrong in your environment. You'll either get an alert or some type of a message that says we see a problem. And most just don't know how to orchestrate them. And orchestrating it means I'm taking that alert and I'm finding a way to operationalize it and adapt to it, right? And move it across multiple vendors. So that's a problem that a lot of teams have. We're going to talk for a moment about what the foundation of any security strategy should be. And I'm telling you, it should be DNS security. And what we call at Cisco cloud security, but it's specifically DNS security. Here's why. It's super inexpensive to deploy. It's cost effective, it's very useful, and it immediately provides impact in your organization. In fact, if you take a look across, environments, most attacks, almost 100% of them use DNS at some point in their attacks. Yet almost 70% of organizations don't even monitor their DNS. So what is DNS, right? DNS is that translation of I'm going to cisco.com. Where does that exist? It exists here. And so we'll kind of define that a little bit more for you so you understand. But, it is an untapped solution in a lot of education environments. 1 in 3 could have been controlled by DNS, and that could have saved entities somewhere between $100 and $200 billion if they had DNS security engaged. So, we're not the only ones that say it, right? A lot of analysts say DNS is a really critical piece. So let's kind of define that down a little bit so that, when you come back to your school districts and your environments, you have an idea of what it is you're really trying to do. So this is what DNS does, right? And this does happen to be the IP address for Cisco.com. But at some point when a computer, an iPhone, Android device, or anything within your network says, I need to go touch Cisco.com, where is it? It has to be given a physical address. And that physical address, or logical address in this case, is an IP address, 72.163.4.161. This is the first step in connecting to anything. And it precedes anything else happening. It even precedes execution of a file or an actual connection to the device. At some point, somebody has to make that translation. For example, you can't go eat dinner or lunch without having an idea of where you're going and what you want to eat. That translation has to happen. It's the same thing in DNS from that standpoint. So this is what Cisco does with our customers. And I'm not going to make this a huge advertisement for Cisco, but I am going to kind of talk a little bit about how we approach things, right? We purchased a company years ago called OpenDNS, and I'm going to give you a little present at the end of the presentation for OpenDNS, but we've renamed it Cisco Umbrella. And Umbrella is an overall DNS security. It goes much deeper than that, but today we're just going to talk about DNS. It deploys in minutes because it is a cloud service like we talked about, and it allows you to learn, see, and block threats before these connections are made. So we want to understand how it does that, right? But before we do, let's just talk about the different environments it covers. It covers your campuses. It covers a satellite location or a dorm room that's remote or an across the city environment that's connected to your school. It covers a student wherever they are, at home, in a coffee shop, in a classroom. And it reduces the amount of alerts that you get, and it disables the ability for traffic and payloads to reach their intended target. And we'll kind of define how that works for a moment. First, what we do is we take a lot of domain information and we consolidate that into some threat intelligence. And it is your first line of defense. We want to block all domains that are associated with anything that, like malware, phishing, command and control callbacks, anything that's associated with that. You don't want anybody in your organization to touch. We want to stop threats as quickly as possible and contain any malware if it's already inside. If you don't already know, I'll give you the layman's version of how malware works. Once malware gets into your network, on your computer, on your phone, it has to actually call back out to a command and control device that will download the payload or the malicious information. Malware isn't the malicious information, it's just the conduit. Well, proper DNS security keeps that malware from going out and bringing in that payload. It also accelerates your threat response capability. And it does that because we're pulling together an unbelievable amount of information. We're doing that through Cisco Talos, which is the largest non-government threat intelligence organization in the world. And for those who like to study Greek mythology, the name Talos actually comes from Greek mythology. Talos was an automaton whose job it was to protect the island of Crete from attackers, right? And it did that by circling the island constantly and looking for attackers. And Cisco Talos works the same way. We're constantly evaluating threats and environments. We look at over 1.5 million new pieces of malware every day to understand how they work, where they're reaching out to. We block over 20 billion threats a day. So what does that mean in Umbrella and cloud security? What that means is we're taking in over 3 million events a second. 3 million a second. We look at billions of historical events and we model them. Right? Here's just an example of a few of them. We have dozens of models, but a spike rank model, which is a domain like Cisco.com that has a sudden spike in traffic. That's an indicator of compromise. Something that's a co-occurrence, right? Other domains looked up in rapid succession is an indicator of something being compromised. So we take all of these models and apply them. And what comes out the bottom is the acceptable and not acceptable domains that you can touch. So these models are, they're enormous in the amount of data they crunch. We use machine learning to pull this information together. Over 250 billion requests a day are looked at, the most anywhere in the world. We have a huge amount of security researchers applying their own informational capabilities. And then we model all of this stuff constantly. And the beauty of this service being cloud native, just like AWS and all these other services you're touching, is that we can make changes and modifications on the fly and immediately get them into your environment. And so that is the beautiful part of it. There's also a piece which we don't need to get into much today, but there's a piece of Umbrella called Investigate where we can actually go in and research things. So I use Investigate when I get an email that I think is suspicious that actually gotten through to me. I'll right click it, copy the domain, go into Investigate and see what we know about that domain and where it's taking me. It might say go to bankofamerica.com, but that link actually takes you somewhere else. And so I can go in and plug it into Investigate and see what's happening. You can do that with things within your own environment as well. So where you know of one indicator of a compromise, we know that one indicator and all his friends and relatives, right? That's the simplest way to put it, is how DNS security works. It gives you really full coverage of the enterprise in just minutes. We say 30 minutes or less. I have very large education customers that have deployed Umbrella in a matter of 15 minutes. And they've done it in an environment that has been breached, and it immediately provides them information. We have off-network laptop coverage, on-network coverage as well, and off-network mobile coverage too, on mobile phones and devices. We do have a global footprint, so whatever you do from a cloud security standpoint, it needs to be able to cover you wherever you are. The reason why this is important is you're not looking at one or two data centers, and if you have an issue like we had at one point with service in the Northeast interrupted, you've got other data centers that you can resolve to. And so I wanted to, before we finish up here, I wanted to give you just one example of how this works. Texas A&M University is an Umbrella customer, and Danny Miller's their Chief Information Security Officer. And Danny said, not only was it easy to put in place, but we immediately saw numbers starting to happen. And that happens almost every single time we put Umbrella out there. And you are able to do a proof of value, which is where you can get Umbrella free for 30 or 45 days. And I haven't seen one go in yet where we didn't see something. Danny told us, look, it cut our alerts by over 50%. It shortened our investigation time, and it allowed us to extend protections to over 183,000 users across 11 campuses in just minutes. So that's just an example of how we've utilized Umbrella in our environment. I did promise you a present, so I'm going to give you a gift here. I've got 3 next steps for you. I do lead a sales organization of specialists, so every sales leader at Cisco is required to end with 3 action items, right? These are my 3. First of all, when you get home, if you're not already at home, go to opendns.com. Umbrella is free for home use. So you can go ahead and implement Umbrella for free in your own home and start protecting your home. And I'll tell you, if you have teenagers, it's a blast. I started Umbrella when I had a teenager at home. He's off in college now, but when I had a teenager at home, and I could block things like, lingerie sites and gambling sites. And, I picked categories. You can go specific, but I picked categories, right? And so it's a blast because you can configure a custom block page. So I put a block page up with my picture on it saying, nope, not allowed to go there, and have a lot of fun with it. So it's free for home use, and I suggest you do it. And here's why, most people would say, wow, why are you doing that for free? Well, we do it for free because we're getting that telemetry. Everything you go visit goes into our threat intelligence model. So we see what's safe and we see what's not safe, right? The second thing is start having conversations within your organization. Start talking about security. Start talking about DNS security. Start talking about what you do for DNS. Remember earlier, I said most organizations don't monitor their DNS. And are you one of those, right? Because I know in most internet environments, if AT&T is your DNS server and your internet provider, if you say, I want to go to fredking.com, it doesn't care if it's good or bad. It sends you. Well, you need to kind of have an idea if it's good or bad ahead of time. So having conversations is important. And then second, take part in prioritizing funding. One of the biggest things that we're doing to help education right now is help them prioritize funding opportunities, whether it's ARPA, CARES, E-rate, and there are some environments where Umbrella SIG is eligible for E-rate funding. Umbrella traditional isn't, but there are some opportunities for you to utilize funding, and it's not just a matter of using it, it's a matter of prioritizing it. In working with your school boards and Board of Education and DOEs and saying, we want funding to go to security first, because if we're compromised, there's nothing that can do damage to our constituency, our students, our teachers, or our reputation more than a breach like that. So with that, I did want to say thank you, appreciate your time. And I wanted to kind of open it up for any questions. I know we've got a couple of customers on the phone. Do you have any questions on anything that you saw today, or anything kind of resonate or not resonate?
Anybody wants to unmute and come off and ask Chris a question, please feel free. And
all right, I'm going to take that as a no. Yep. Fred, if you have a question, I'm ready for it, but otherwise I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Chris. That was a fantastic session. I leverage OpenDNS at home for my kids when they're browsing on the internet. So I definitely recommend to leverage it personally for yourself and to definitely consider it as a customer. I'm going to jump in really quickly. I'll share my screen again one more time. I've got a couple more slides that I'd like to show everybody before closing out. So here we go. Put this back into presentation mode. So again, don't forget to save this session, right? We've got the resources. I've asked Chris to share the deck with us, so I'll make sure that we get those up into the Solutions Hub, so you can grab that and add that into your digital tote bag. This session has been recorded today, absolutely. So we're going to make sure that this recording is available within 48 hours. This will be posted to the ISTE site, and this will also be posted to our microsite. And so if you're ready for more content, then I highly encourage you to grab up the link at the bottom. That's cs.co ISTE21. That's a link to our live microsite, as you can see over here. And again, that's a fantastic page that's got tons of educator resources, right? It's got links and information about the Cisco Networking Academy, which I highly recommend you guys looking into, because that's what Cisco is doing to help train the engineers of the future. I'm a graduate of the Cisco Networking Academy, so I absolutely have lived it and I believe in it. We also have links there for kind of the why Cisco in education, so please feel free to take a look at that. There's links there as well to talk about free virtual field trips for how you can, engage the students in a virtual way, outside the classroom. Yesterday, we took a field trip up to Alaska and we got to see sea lions, and it was really awesome. We also did a really cool, exciting event with Chris Martin, where he jumped in and he was able to engage with students in 4 different schools around the world and kind of, give a little give back and thank you to educators as we were kind of going through and saying, thanks to our everyday heroes. So I highly recommend you guys go out to the microsite and check that out and consider, why Cisco for education. And then with that, I'm going to move it forward and say thank you very much. And again, we do very much appreciate the time and attention today. And hopefully you guys all have a great day. Happy ISTE. Thank you, everybody.